It's definitely a man's invention.
No.
Yes.
No, it couldn't have been.
Yes.
Because a woman has to have a toilet. A man would find a bush. It's been about a year ago, but we've got the video. We went to Joshua Tree. This is one we had to fly into again, kind of like the last video. It was a little bit odd for us. We flew into San Diego, tacked it into another one. While we were in San Diego for a couple nights, went to a few breweries, one day, and then one more when we got back from Joshua Tree. Where did we start out? We started out at Mike Hess. So we went to Mike Hess, had lunch there. Really good, like a taco.
Oh yeah, that was the one right on the river, or right on the
bay.
Ocean, on the bay, yeah.
From there, I think
great tacos.
Then we went to, Half Door. That was the one that had the really cool bar inside, and it was just like a house. I mean, it was really kind of cool. You sit on the porch there, and inside was like nothing but a bar. There weren't like any really places to sit inside of it, but it was just a brewery. And from there, we walked up to Knotty Barrel. Knotty Barrel was a little different. It was more of a beer bar with a few beers that they brewed. They had Pliny the Elder there, so I wanted to have that one.
Yes, your silly face drinking that beer. You're like, hey.
Well, you enjoy what you enjoy, and that's one that, it's about a day's standards. It's just another beer, but it's still one of those that you kind of need to truly experience, right? Well, then we walked over to Little Miss. Little Miss Brewing was kind of a hole in the wall. It was probably the coolest place we went. We sit and talked to some people for a while. So I know where the political leanings, California gets a bad rep for that, but you know what? We didn't really notice them talking to people, which is probably what happens most of the time if people would just talk. But we never had any issue with it. And I think maybe it was because most people we were talking to were business owners. Then after Little Miss, we went over to Lost Abbey. Lost Abbey is now more of a tasting room. The first time we ever went there, Lost Abbey was probably one of the coolest. Port and Lost Abbey were together. They were not a bar. This Lost Abbey now is in an old church. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's a neat place. But before, it used to be in like a little industrial
warehouse.
That was just a warehouse. You pulled in, and it was like Port and Lost Abbey were together, and it was phenomenal. I mean, it was like the coolest place we'd ever been at the time, and that was early on in my
that was
craft beer drinking.
That was
days.
Your wonderful Father's Day present where we went on that brewery tour on the bus and went everywhere. And they put the wristband on and gave you a 5-ounce taster and said, we'll see you in an hour.
Yeah, and I think the coolest part is it was like a $60 tour. They picked us up at the hotel and basically took us to 4 different breweries, fed us. All this in California, I'm telling you, $60. You couldn't have beat it.
And we were the only tourists. Everybody else was local. They were picking people up in neighborhoods, and some guys came down off a train from LA.
Some came from LA. Some girls came down from LA.
On a bus ride back.
Yeah, it was definitely a totally different bus ride back. Really, everybody there, we had a good time. Yeah. But then after Lost Abbey, then was East Village. By that time, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. We had way more. That 3 or 4 Knotty Barrel or Pliny the Elder was a few of them, and it did not. Yeah.
We went to bed early that night.
Yeah, we were done at the end of this. But whatever. We were able to get up, see a little more of the city the next day while she was in her conference.
I went to work. He hung out.
I hung out. I don't know that I hung out and did much, but slept. But we made it down a little. Finished our conference. We got a rental and we drove to Joshua Tree. It's 2.5 hour drive?
Roughly.
Like 2.5 hour drive. We had a little RAV4, which is, if you've never driven one, it's about the most underpowered piece of garbage you'll ever drive. And how is that the #1 selling vehicle in America right now? I don't get it.
Not everyone thinks they need to have a V8.
Maybe it was kind of a crazy decision, but I decided, you know what? No. Let's camp in Joshua Tree. So we
in January,
yeah, in January, mind you. We're going to camp. So we had a tent. We got a sleeping bag, and we were able to fit all this in our luggage. Take it with us. So no big
Southwest.
Deal. Yep.
Free bags.
So one of hers. So we camped. We set it up. Jumbo Rocks was probably awesome. A really cool campground. All right. Yeah. So in our campsite, if we had anything but a tent, we were screwed because we basically could park there and that was it. And then we set the tent up, and little did we realize how much wind that rock would kind of push in. So the wind was hitting the rock and then right up into our tent. So by about 5 a.m. we were froze, and we were wrapped up good. I mean, we weren't not prepared to be cold. We knew it was going to be cold.
We're accustomed to a camper.
Yeah.
We've gotten over the tent camping days.
Not quite that cold. But the coolest thing is that night, we're getting there to Jumbo Rocks, and we're thinking, wow, we're gonna hang out here. The nice darks, because this is a dark skies park. So this is one that you don't have a lot of light pollution. You can really see the stars. I thought, man, this is gonna be awesome. And we sit down, and it starts getting dark, and we see the stars, and you see some of the pictures we took. It was so cool. And then the moon rose, and it was like daylight.
Because we were there full moon and didn't realize it was full moon.
Yeah. Oh my God, it was most of the pictures in the campground that we have on our slideshow here, just a camera with moonlight. We go to Jumbo Rock, we stay there. Awesome. Again, lots of pictures in here. I'll try and, I don't know, we'll see if we can maybe match it up. But guys, you just kind of have to look, because most of these pictures, they're jumbo, and we're sitting down kind of talking about it now and playing it in the background. So just do your best to kind of guess. Sorry, it's not in better condition. We really didn't know what we were doing then, and didn't know we would be doing this for sure. But we want to share everything that we could with you guys. Anyway, we got up at 5 a.m. and it's still dark. I mean, it's pitch. It's well, as dark as it could be with the moon out.
It's 5 a.m. West Coast.
Yeah,
so
it's darker than it was at 11 o'clock at night.
It's 7 o'clock to us, because we're at least we're central. So
we wake up and we decided, well, let's just start driving. So we basically had the entire park to ourselves.
Yeah, get up early.
So we got out, it was 5 a.m. We go to Skull Rock, we're the only one parked there. We park right next to it. Take some of the best pictures you could imagine, just really cool stuff. Left there, it's a split rock, we went there, same thing, great pictures. We kind of started playing with the settings on the camera though, I think, to get a little brighter pictures. But still, they were coming out really cool. Some of the stuff's a little bit fuzzy, but you know what? We're sharing it with you guys. We're no professional for sure. But really, it was just so much cool stuff to see. I think we did Arch the second day. We went that same morning. That's when we went to the Cholla Cactus Garden.
Yeah, get there at sunrise. That's the time you're supposed to be there to see the rays come through.
Yep, and you can kind of see from our pictures. I mean, we just wandered upon it because we were driving around. And we're like, oh, what's this? We pull in. We got a parking spot. Next thing you know, there's people everywhere waiting on the sun to come up. So it's like, okay, this is the spot to be. We got there early enough.
Wear your hair up and wear tight fit clothing, because these little cactus, they look
like
very like
they call them a teddy bear cactus.
They call them a teddy bear, but apparently they will jump out at any loose anything you have and then embed themselves in you, which doesn't sound like fun. Don't
touch them.
Nope.
That would be my best. I mean, hey, actually, you know what? Go touch one,
report
back to us, and tell us what happened. Maybe we'll know. I mean, there was another one, Lost Horse Mine. That was kind of, that was more of a drive by. There were some trails there I'd like to have done, but we were not in a place to do a whole lot of trails that week. I'm thinking at that time I was having a lot of knee trouble. Much better, but at the time it was like, this is hurting bad. So I wasn't doing a lot of miles on it.
And we've been sleeping on the ground, and we're not used to sleeping on the ground in a tent. So I think it was...
Yeah, that probably didn't help. We drove up past there, we went to Keys View, which Keys View was kind of neat. I mean, you could look up, you could see 29 Palms, and you could look across and see the Salton Sea. See the Salton Sea? Anyway, you could see that. If you don't know anything about the Salton Sea, it's probably one of the biggest environmental idiot moves ever made. And I guess California's made so many bonehead decisions over the years that's why they've become, so green, because every time they try something, they screw it up. And it becomes a nightmare. And the Salton Sea is very much a total environmental catastrophe. I'm not going to talk about it here, but check it out. There's great stories about it. One of my favorite places there was Ryan Ranch. And I guess it was ruins of an old ranch.
bunch of old tractor pieces
Well,
and
yeah, there were
parts
engines
everywhere,
and-
which is
and
why he
stuff.
loved it.
But you know, the other thing is it was a natural spring that was there that dried up. So they had a natural spring. They were able to farm. They were able to do. And I would love to have seen what that place looked like when it had water. And most of these deserts, I think they're actually pretty fertile. There's just no water. Because if you ever notice, if you go to a desert and you find a spring, it'll be like huge trees shot up all over right there. The grass is just as green as could be. Then, so we went to the next campground. Again, we only stayed there, 2 nights?
One night.
No, 2 nights. We stayed at Jumbo Rocks one night, and we stayed at Cottonwood the next night. 2 nights. 1, 2, right?
One night each. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, yeah.
On the horizon.
I didn't roll my eyes. What are you talking about?
Okay.
Cottonwood. So we stayed at Cottonwood. The campground, whatever. It's just a desert campground. I mean, it's a few Joshua trees, a few odds and ends, and then, oh crap, we're going to run out.
Jumbo Rocks was much cooler when it comes to like campground.
Yeah. But Cottonwood, now what I really liked about Cottonwood was actually the spring. If you go down to the spring, there was an oasis down there. So cool, man.
The big palm
Palms
trees,
were
yeah.
massive, and it was like where they just grown wild. There would be areas opened up. It was almost like you were completely covered naturally. It had its own.
We see it. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
But seeing big, massive palm trees, natural, where they hadn't cut all the dead off the bottom, and it was actually just the way a palm tree would grow if it wasn't messed with,
Yep.
and just was left to be. So yeah, it was pretty
Which
cool.
actually looks much cooler than a trimmed palm tree. But maybe it's just because it's new. I don't know. I'm sure it's a pain in the ass.
Well, and then when we got back to San Diego before we flew, we had one more brewery we stopped at. Oh, yeah, he's got his Alesmith.
That one.
It was beautiful 70s in January, which is not common for us. So we
was
sat
pretty-
there probably 2-3 hours before we had to get to the airport and just had lunch off a food truck and, had a couple drinks and enjoyed the sunshine and
Looked
the
at
warmth.
Alesmith, which Alesmith's a really cool brewery. It's a massive brewery. Okay, so they are a true production facility, but they also have a serious beer garden. Like there's some pictures in here of it. Evidently the guy who started Alesmith was a huge Padres fan, and I forget the player, but he's got one beer that is actually his batting average, which is phenomenal. Like 394, I think it is.
I don't know.
394 or 348. For some, I can't remember. Somebody down here tell me, because I don't want to go look it up right now. We're just looking. We're just talking about it. But just know it was a phenomenal batting average. And of course, you go back in the back. They've got axe throwing room, and they've got I think they had a loft area that had another bar that they served from that was open some of the time. Had a great big area that they sold, the gift shop, which every decent place, but then the outside beer garden. I mean, it was just a cool area. I mean, it was there in another industrial setting, but it was set up to accommodate people and be a cool place. It's it's a brewery the way breweries should be. You should know you're at a brewery. You shouldn't feel like, I'm going to a restaurant with a couple beers that they brew. No, I want to know I'm at a brewery. So, and that's what this place was. They are definitely massive. Well, thoughts on Joshua Tree?
Such a different landscape. It's not a place where I could see spending 3, 4, or 5, really long periods of time. That it's so unique that it's a great, go spend the weekend there, go see all the things, and see the, Joshua trees are just really odd, and all the rocks and the formations and the cactus. So it's worth going, but it's one you can do and not think you've got to spend days and days and days and days and days. I'm sure if you dug deep you could, but you can really see all the high points you want to in a short amount of time and make it reasonable.
To me, Joshua Tree was the park was awesome. One thing we didn't talk about, and that's the place going in, Joshua Tree Saloon. That was kind of a cool place. It had, I remember they had pretty good burgers. They had a good beer selection. Probably at other times of the year, that place would be hopping because they had a lot of outdoor stuff, and it was a little cooler when we got there than it normally would be, I think. Some trucks and stuff outside. I kind of liked one old International and another old GMC. Both big trucks. So And in California, they in a desert, so they're basically rust free. So it's making me jealous as hell to see it. But yeah, I mean, if I had a chance to go back to it, I would. I'd go back, and there's some things that we didn't get to see. You don't ever get to see all of everything, and that's the problem. I mean, unless you're just there for even Joshua Tree, it would take to see truly everything. It would take, probably at least a week to really do all the trails and see all that it had. And it's a small park, so you can imagine a park like Yellowstone or Yosemite, and it'd be like you could spend years there and never see it all. I mean,
and it's relatively newer too, wasn't it? What, the 90s, 1990s or something? It's a relatively,
right.
When you think national parks, I'm thinking some of the older ones.
Thanks for watching. Hopefully we got something. You got something out of this. Now I want to go chop this up and see if we can stick it to the wall and make anything look right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was...
You didn't even have to take a flashlight with you when you went to go to the bathroom, because there was enough light that you could just walk. It was like dusk all night long.
Wonderful pit toilet. Most god-awful invention ever.
A man absolutely invented that, because a woman would have never done a pit toilet.
No way.
Ever, 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 ever. It's definitely a man's invention.
No.
Yes.
No, it couldn't have been.
Yes.
Because a woman has to have a toilet. A man would find a bush.
Well, it depends on what you're doing.
Nope, it doesn't. No, I'm going to tell you right now. If it comes to a pit toilet or that bush, I'm hitting the bush.
I still guarantee you a man invented it. We'll have to look it up later.
Maybe.
Women would never have invented a pit toilet.
Complaining.
Shut